Welcome to the Capitalist Corner, everybody. I'm very happy to have you with us today. I'm Michael Liebowitz. I am the vice chairman of the American Capitalist Party. As always, the views expressed here don't necessarily reflect the views of the party. I'm also the host of The Rational Egoists, which we have a great episode out right now with debate with the philosopher Andy Bernstein. And Mark may be joining us a little later in the broadcast. He had some things to take care of, but we are in good hands because we have with us the great James Valliant, former prosecutor, philosopher, author. He just does it all. He even sings and dances. Jim, welcome.
I never said I sang and danced well, but I am known to break out into song and dance. This was sort of last minute, so I haven't had a chance to read any articles you sent me. I was not at the top of my game. What was it with the last 15?
You're not prepared?
What you asked me?
What are you talking about? When you come on someone's show, you come prepared.
Okay. My lazy ass has not done anything to prepare for this.
No, I kid. I just notified Jim about this about 10 minutes ago. I was just getting in the shower, and he said he would join me, but he was, unprepared because there was no way for him to be prepared unless he were psychic. Jim, I definitely want to get into some of the articles, but I do want to talk to you about something that is relevant, I think, to capitalism. And this, you of all people, do not need any prep work for, right? I came across a great quote from Milton Friedman yesterday, or maybe it was this morning. I get confused, but either way, the quote was about how, everybody agreed that socialism sucked. This is the gist of it. Milton Friedman didn't speak this way, but I speak this way. He said, everybody agreed socialism sucked. And then when socialism collapsed, what people said is we need more socialism. And I thought it was a great quote. And, I posted it in par for the course. Whenever you talk about Milton Friedman, objectivists and libertarians, never let the perfect be the enemy of the good unless you're an objectivist or a libertarian, and the perfect has to be the enemy of the good. But I'm reminded of Mark Skousen. When Mark Skousen took over for the Foundation for Economic Education, one person came to him and said, I'm glad you're taking over, but you've just got to stop from being so hard on Milton Friedman. Okay. And then somebody else comes and tells him, Mark, I'm glad you're taking over, but I really hope that you'll stop this going so easy on Milton Friedman. Now, I admit I have a soft spot for Milton Friedman because he introduced me to economics. His was my first book, Free to Choose. I also then read Capitalism and Freedom, and I even have his Monetary History of the United States right next to me. But for lovers of capitalism, what's your take? What should we be thinking about Milton Friedman?
Oh, Milton Friedman. Well, I think it was in the 1940s when Ayn Rand was sort of a ghost figure for the Foundation for Economic Education, and its original founder, Leonard Read.
Who I love also, by the way.
She gave informal advice to him as he was getting fee started in the first place. And I believe there was an article by Milton Friedman that was submitted. I believe they did run it, but Ayn Rand was scathing in her criticism of the young Milton Friedman. He had not yet produced his major works. He was still a very young economist. This was back in the 1940s, for gosh sakes. But her criticisms, I think, still sort of apply. He is not a consistent advocate of laissez-faire capitalism. Now, talk about perfect versus good. He says some really good things on the way to being very imperfect. That is to say, you talked about his Monetary History of the United States, a monumental work. On the other hand, let me just say right up front that there is no correct monetary policy. Monetarism is not the best approach to economics. We need a more Austrian approach, it seems to me, to these things. And he is a moral compromiser. Above all, he never understood the moral dimensions of so he could, call for a reverse income tax, subsidizing the poor directly with income, and things of that nature. So if the question, going back to your original question, yeah, I lived as an adult through 1989, 1990, 1991, and the collapse of the Soviet Empire. And it was my naive hope at that time that people could see, okay, well, the Soviet Union's a basket case. At this point, how many examples do we need, whether it's democratic socialism in England, which Thatcher was doing her best to fix? Hong Kong's success at the time. And I was thinking to myself, okay, now it's obvious. We've got tons of empirical data on capitalism. And not only is communism a basket case economically, it was a bloody failure. It was a horrific totalitarian dictatorship. And so it seemed to me, aha, now we have an opportunity to make the case for capitalism. No. Everyone started turning, and then in America, there was a slight sort of triangulation by the Democrats to the left in the 1990s, to the right in the 1990s. The era of big government is over, declared the Democrat Bill Clinton, and he did work when a Republican Congress was elected to balance the budget and so forth. So I was thinking maybe in America we're making baby steps, but no, sorry, wrong answer. America is still heading in a more, in the mixed economy, more in the socialist direction, whichever party is in power. And it has not stopped, and no amount of empirical data will do that. It is exactly where Milton Friedman was flawed that the weakness lies. His moral case for capitalism was just non-existent. It's just a better way of delivering the goods. And if there's a government solution, whether it's a monetary solution or a negative income tax solution, well, okay, let's not get all moralistic about price controls, but they do cause shortages. But let's not get all moralistic about it. That was what Friedman stands for. If Friedman was the best that capitalist defenders had to offer, no wonder we're still heading in a socialist/fascist direction, which we still are in the 30 years since then. That was the nub of the problem. Where Milton Friedman was weak is exactly where they're still driving the moral. Look at Mamdani, the mayor of New York.
He's not mayor yet, Jim.
Or the mayor candidate, excuse me, thank you for the correction. The candidate for mayor of New York looks like he might get in, though, if they keep the race divided like that. In any case, you got Elizabeth Warren saying, yeah, that's the future of our party now. What is the problem with everything he says? Facts, economics, historical experience, all the things that Friedman stressed. All the things that Friedman stressed got nowhere in academia, even in worldwide popular imagination. Well, we need some government after all. So let me suggest that the problem was not a practical economics or history lesson, which would overwhelmingly say socialism is a failure. So the Milton Friedman approach has failed and was precisely that failure that has caused socialism to endure. Until we take head on the issue of morality and capitalism, we are doomed. We are doomed to continuously, no amount of experience will overcome that. Philosophy is what really shapes people's opinion. And the deeper philosophy of values, ethics, political ethics. If we can't take that issue on, we are doomed, because there's no amount of economic theory and there's no amount of historical experience at this point that could possibly drive the point home more powerfully. We've got all that. Milton Friedman stressed all that. He won a Nobel Prize for stressing all that. Okay, I get it. But the point is that ain't going to do it. It hasn't done it. It hasn't moved the needle in 30 years.
I agree with you, but I disagree with you. And that may sound crazy, but it's really not, because your broad points about Milton Friedman, I agree with. However, monetary history of the United States, for instance, while by and large I disagree with his monetary theory, Mark Skousen pointed out that nobody has done more to demonstrate to a broader audience that the Great Depression was a failure of government. And he talks about the one sentence underlined by everybody who read it about the collapsing of the currency as the Fed stood by and did nothing, and in fact raised interest rates, which is the dumbest thing that you can possibly do at that point. Also, the negative income tax, and I agree with you, it was an idea of his, But at the same time, it wasn't like he said, look, this is a great idea. What he was talking about, it was in Capitalism and Freedom, unless he's written about it elsewhere that I'm unaware of. But in Capitalism and Freedom, he was talking about the welfare system. And he said, instead of giving all these different programs, it would be better to just give cash. Because he was always looking to maximize utility. Like he came up with he took it from John Stuart Mill, but the idea for vouchers. Instead of just saying abolish public education, he came up with vouchers. And I think it's a good idea as a method or a means to get toward private education. Race Jacobson actually said in the comments something I think it was very good. He said, Milton Friedman is a gateway drug on the way to capitalism. And I think it's true. The thing where, first of all, I think if Milton Friedman's entire system were implemented right now, it would be exponentially better than what we currently have. That's the first thing. But also, and Milton criticized both von Mises and Ayn Rand for their style. And Milton Friedman, look, this guy was so jovial and so personable and he could be erudite as in monetary history of the United States, where some of it's almost inscrutable. And at the same time, go on Phil Donahue and just destroy Phil Donahue with a smile on his face and communicate these ideas wonderfully. What I would like to see personally is an objectivist Milton Friedman. What I mean by that is someone, and that's kind of what this show is, that's kind of your approach, is not this how evil thou art stuff, but somebody that's jovial, that can explain it, that exemplifies the spirit of objectivism as a zest and a love for life, much in the way that, despite his flaws, I think Andy Bernstein does. I think you do. I think Robert and Amy Nasser do. I think Mark does. That is where I think Milton Friedman really, really excelled, was in communication style.
Well, if you're talking communication style, if you're talking effective communication, okay. A friendly, jovial face. It's just the way I am. It's just my own nature to be friendly and jovial, and I don't pick fights generally. I do understand Ayn Rand and Ludwig von Mises' attitude, especially in the times they were living and what they were reacting to, and giving us a basic argument that was intransigent. And that's always what they were. What Friedman wasn't complaining about was their style and PR. I mean, Ayn Rand did more to talk about a gateway drug. Ayn Rand did more to popularize the ideas of laissez-faire capitalism than
that's exactly what Friedman said. He said she's done more to popularize these ideas than anybody. But he criticized it
with her style taken into account. And so, I think it's much more than style. I think it's substance. I think it's moral vision. And if you could combine a friendly face, perhaps a friendly face would be better style. But if you could combine a friendly face, that style, with a moral intransigence, that's what Ayn Rand gets a hard time for. Or his economic intransigence, Ludwig von Mises. I mean, that's what everyone, even his close friends said, when Lou was on it, you could not budge, Lou. That was it. You're all a bunch of Reds at the Mount Pelerin Society as he storms out.
Let me just give a little backdrop. So they're having a meeting of the Mount Pelerin Society. And whatever you think about Hayek and the bunch, these are not socialists,
No.
Right? They're not. But von Mises, who stopped talking to Fritz Malklip for 3 years because they differed over the gold standard, storms out of this place and says, you're all a bunch of socialists. Ayn Rand, you do it much better than I, but, if someone's disagreeing with her, are you focused? And, that's good because that was her. But I think if we try, instead of trying to be Ayn Rand or Ayn Rand-like, we should be who we are. Right. And that I think is the key. Now, Bonnie Bertrand said, isn't Friedman saying government is responsible for the poor? Does joviality excuse that? I'm not saying, Bonnie, that him being jovial excludes his flaws. But I think that it's better to be that way when communicating. Also, I don't think Friedman said that the government is responsible for the poor. You'd have to find me a quote for that. I think that what he was saying is because he wanted to get rid of Social Security. He wanted to get rid of all occupational licensing. He thought these things were a travesty. He certainly would have been opposed to all these tariffs. So the fact that he was for a lesser, he said, look, we can get rid of all the bulk of the welfare state and minimize it. That's not perfect. It's better than what we have now. And it's not, like Jim said, he wasn't a moralist. So he wouldn't have said the government is responsible for the poor, because that's in itself a moral position. What he would have been talking about is the best way to maximize things, to get from here to there, that sort of thing, which I don't think is the best approach, but that was his approach. But he certainly was a great communicator.
The smile when you say socialism is evil. Okay. I get it. And I try to smile when I say socialism is evil, even though it's a grim subject in many cases, where tens of millions of people died under communist experimentations. And many people suffer and suffer unto this day because of socialist approaches to economic policy. So, how, we say we want to put a friendly face on it. How do you put a friendly face? I mean, Gary Cooper, I guess, was your best shot. I don't recognize anyone's right to 1 minute of my energy. My life is mine. My work is my own. Again, paraphrasing Howard Rourke. But if, you want to put a handsome actor face on it and try and say it as in the stilted kind of way Gary Cooper gave it in The Fountainhead. The point is, how do you do that? How do you say that's evil, this is heroic, and not at some point just back up and say this is deadly serious? There are people starving, there are people dying, there are millions who've been slaughtered with this approach. So to be a moralist is to make heavy kind of judgments about it, and personal judgments about it that can't be avoided. I think this is why Rand and Mises got along so well. They were so damned intransigent about it, and they were islands in a sea of socialism sweeping the world. I mean, is it any accident that the 1930s, 1920s to say 1940s and 50s saw the entire Western world, in fact, so much of the world, go communist, socialist? We got the New Deal in America, and that was the lightest impact, in effect, in the 1930s. But what do we get? We got Mussolini, we got Hitler, we got Stalin, we got, in the 40s, we got Mao. In the 50s, we got democratic socialism in England. So when they were working at their height of their work, the world was going down a socialist sewer all around them. And their intransigence, in retrospect, looks, to my way of thinking, like a calm reaction to the world heading in a full speed in a socialist direction. Today, we live in a world that's already there. And so I guess when you hit the bottom, and perhaps my jovial attitude is simply, well, geez, we keep hitting bottoms. And of course, there's a new bottom to reach every time, but it disappoints me. But when you hit bottom, all you can do is kind of laugh. And if that's what, if we can take an understanding position, say, to ignorant young people, I think that would be important. If we can be friendly and open in our engagement with people who disagree with us, who might be something short of, say, Hitler or Stalin, then I think that might help a sales pitch. But what I think the real problem was not the Milton Friedman's smile. The real advantage there wasn't really his smile. It was the fact that he wasn't going to be moralistic about it. Gee, Phil Donahue, I understand why you and your heart would. This is what they always say. Your intentions are noble. No, they're not.
No, a lot of times
got to say that for these intellectuals and policymakers, their intentions ain't noble, and someone's got to say that's wrong.
But Jim, the flip side of that is, right, that I am loath to ascribe intentions to people that I don't know, that I haven't spoken to. I mean, I need a lot of evidence, is what I'm saying, before I say somebody's intentions are to be dishonest or their intention is to be evil. But you made a good point. I want to back up a little bit to your point about intransigence, the intransigence of Mises and the intransigence of Ayn Rand. Because I think that schisms of these kinds are inevitable when you have passionate people, right? People that are principled and passionate. because the disagreements are going to happen, and then the schisms are inevitable. It just is. I mean, because everybody thinks that they're on the right side, and the right thing to do in those situations sometimes is to part ways. But there's two things about this that I think are important. One is, Andy Bernstein pointed this out to me. He says, us objectivists, he said, yeah, we end up in schisms and we, lose contact with each other. We stop talking, whatever. He said, but we don't resort to fighting. Right? We never resort to violence because we all share the principle that to initiate force is evil. So we have intellectual disagreements and we go our separate ways. And that was a great point to me. And the other the point that was made to be about schisms, and I won't say who made it, but this is one of those debates that I lost in life. It's very, very, very rarely happens. But this one happened, and it happened. It happened often. Okay, it was Jim. Jim's savaged me in this debate, and he did so mostly because he's a historian of immense knowledge. But I was under the impression that these schisms are horrible, that we need to unify, objectivists, libertarians, all of us, because otherwise the freedom movement goes nowhere. But Jim pointed out to me that I was exactly wrong, and that the opposite is the case. And one of the examples you gave was early Christianity and all the schisms that erupted there. Jesus. But the movement grows. So I think that
if you went back into the 2nd century and you saw all the different Christianities, Gnosticism versus Ebionitism versus what would become more standard Orthodox Christianity, you'd think this movement is so divided, it's not going anywhere. In the 2nd century AD. And of course, the better part of the next 2,000 years are going to belong to Christianity. And, and Europe is going to go fully Christian. And, or if you were to take the example of socialism, which I think is perhaps the even more recent and clear. If at the end of the 19th or beginning of the 20th century, you looked at the socialist divisions, you said, well, there's the revisionists under Edward Bernstein, you've got your anarcho-syndicalists, you've got your Christian socialists, you've got your Marxist communists. You'd say, my God, these socialists are a mess. It's like herding cats. They're never going to get their act together. But as I just pointed out, the 20th century kind of belonged to the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Boom. Socialism is sweeping the world in various forms and various degrees. It wins the debate. Why? Because it has a group of people who care, thoughtful people who are willing to say, no, this difference matters. And if they're getting picky about the difference and saying, I'm not going to be your friend anymore because this difference matters, then I'll show you a group of people who really care and who get the moral point.
So I have to do
moral awareness too, by the way.
I have to do my daily thrashing of Scott Schiff here. So Scott Schiff asked this question. Did Christianity say there doesn't need to be conflicts amongst rational people? No, Scott, but neither did Ayn Rand. Because the essay, and wow, I happen to have it right here. Let me just see if I can't find it. I can tell you what it was. She said there doesn't need to be conflicts of interest among rational men, meaning that everybody pursuing their self-interest rationally doesn't need to be at the expense of each other. It's not a zero-sum game. She nowhere ever said that rational people won't disagree or that rational people won't stop talking. So, Scott, once again, you're wrong. It's okay. It happens to all of us, you more than most. But keep joining the show, Scott, because actually your comments are wonderful, and we need people here that are going to disagree even when they're woefully wrong.
Yeah.
All right.
Conflict of interest, when you speak about a real conflict of interest, if people are free to go their own way, the fact that you disagree, the fact that you're doing something different, does not imply that we're actually in any conflict. We're each engaging in our win-win voluntary trades as we go along with other human beings in a perfectly rational way, not a zero-sum situation. That does not imply that we don't have arguments and that those arguments aren't important. Because guess what? If we agree about one thing, the value of the truth, or say the value of individual liberty, then of course we're going to disagree about various things along the way. And those disagreements, if we share the value of truth, then we should be willing to engage with one another about the best approach to that. That's not a conflict of interest. We share a common goal. We just have a disagreement about the means to get there, say, or the correct foundations for that philosophically. And those are that's what we're supposed to do. Gosh, arguing that is exactly, engaging that is exactly what we need to do.
Somebody in the chat accused me of being mean today. I'm not mean, Ali. That's mean of you to say. I'm not mean. I am a fucking peach. I am a peach. Listen, on a personal level, I'm going to tell the truth. I like to pull back the curtain sometimes. On the personal level, and you know, we are out here as people in the realm of ideas, but I've actually associated with Scott Schiff outside of the internet. And whenever I get along with him perfectly well. In the realm of ideas, I frequently disagree with him. Now, in my view, because I disagree with him about ideas, doesn't mean I have to hate him as a person. But I'm free to do so if I want to. I'm free to say, you know what, we disagree too much. I'm going to go my separate ways. But ultimately, he's not hurting me in any way. He disagrees. I think he's good for the show to come on and disagree. And like I said, I personally like him. Plus, he's been defending Dr. Peikoff lately, which gives him bonus points in my view. It's amazing how when someone's on your side, I shouldn't have said I took sides, but it's amazing how when someone agrees with you, all of a sudden all sins are forgiven. It's like, hey Jim, you ever like come across something, you'll say, what fucking asshole did this? And then it was you, and you say, oh, and now all of a sudden it becomes so understandable.
I've had the grim experience of looking back at writing I've done decades ago. I said, what idiot would say anything like that? Well, oh, it's mine. Yeah. No, I've had that. Now pull back the curtain a little bit. The truth is that we had a discussion about, my policies and practices as being a DA when I was a public prosecutor. Your conclusion was you'd have been a lot harder on criminals than I was. You'd have been, so there is this harsh moralist, believe it or not, underneath the friendly face. Don't lie about it, Michael. There is this moralist who has clear, and I respect that. I like that. I myself had moral lines. But the point is, after every case, almost every case, there were cases where there was defense attorneys I could not abide because I knew they were dishonest, they were liars, they were unethical. But in most cases, I could walk out of the room and still be friendly with the attorney that I had such a heated argument with. In most cases.
But some cases, when there's absolute moral failings, it's a different story.
It's a different story.
Speaking of moral failings, the story I have in the queue. I'm just hoping you know about these stories. I mean, you're a connoisseur of the news, so I don't know if I used connoisseur correctly, but what the hell do I care?
I'm well informed.
Jim, you ever hear the saying, I think it's in the Bible, let the words of other men praise you and not your own. Okay. So we don't like, you brag enough. We have you, you're like this guy. I'll tell everybody how great you are, how handsome.
It's true.
I just got these stitches out yesterday. It's nice to have my own show because I can talk about whatever the hell I want. I got the stitches out yesterday and wow, I feel better immediately. Just immediately I feel better. And the thing that got me through a lot of this that I found very relaxing, 5 milligram marijuana gummy, just one, relaxes the whole face area because it was so much tension. Got me through, didn't make me all sluggish. I didn't get the the paranoid, because I used to get that when I smoked pot when I was young. So that's one of the reasons I don't do it now. But these gummies, they really, really help. Yes, Ali, I had an absolutely wonderful birthday. You know how we like to talk about visibility, Jim? So yesterday morning, Diana comes and she gives me my gifts. Let me just tell you. So this is my original version of The Virtue of Selfishness. I've had this book for 18 years. It's underlined. The pages are falling apart, everything. But it was a gift from my mother, so I hold on to it. So Diana, knowing that this is a gift from my mother, so I don't have to constantly use this one as a resource, buys me The Virtue of Selfishness. That's the first gift she gives me. Then she comes and gives me, she bought an original LP, Diary of a Madman, Ozzy Osbourne. This it's an interesting story. When I was a kid, I wanted to get my first year liking Ozzy. So I must have been 6. And my mother was going to buy me an album. And I wanted Diary of a Madman. But I was too young. I couldn't read. I didn't know what the title of the album was. So she got me Blizzard of Oz. I was happy, but disappointed. Diana got me that because I pointed out last year in New York City, a vendor was selling it. I told her I liked it. So she got me that. She got me an Ozzy Funko doll. Then she loaded me up with a variety of caffeine sources, my energy drinks, K-cups. I got honey peanuts. This was great. Subby threw a party for me, had all the friends over. What a great birthday. Okay. Now I got to talk about myself, which is always great. I love to talk about myself, but we can move on to this story that I wanted to mention. The transfer of Ghislaine Maxwell to a minimum security federal prison as a sex trafficker. What do you think?
I think she may be turning state's evidence, and I think there may be an investigation going on. From the outside, it's very easy to say, oh, well, they're shutting her up and giving her better treatment, and they're moving along and distracting with the Russia stuff that's being released. But I am more and more coming to the belief that they don't want to talk about it because there may be investigations of other people going on, and she could be turning state's evidence against these other people. The Deputy Attorney General came to visit her before the transfer was made. Prosecutors want to talk about someone who's long since been convicted. That usually signals, to me as a former prosecutor, that they're investigating other people. And when an investigation is happening by the Justice Department or by the local law enforcement agencies, they are under strict rules. They cannot peep about what's going on. So in the Russiagate thing that's going on, they've just summoned, one of the great powers of a prosecutor is to summon a grand jury who can subpoena and get any information under the sun by force of law. But everything that happens in a grand jury is secret. It is a felony to release any information from a grand jury investigation, because we don't want to point fingers and ruin lives and reputations and defame people if we're just in the investigatory stage. But a grand jury in the Russiagate thing definitely indicates they want the superpowers of subpoena that a grand jury has to uncover every rock and get whatever evidence they need while investigating whether Trump was set up in Russiagate or not. Well, I think a similar thing is going on here. She's getting more Miss Maxwell is getting.
Jim, remember I told you that, I love you, but you can be a bit naive.
Maybe.
So this woman was facing decades in prison and didn't flip on anyone. That did not happen. So for me to think she's going to flip to get to a lower prison, I'm skeptical, especially the problem is there's context here, right? This didn't just come out of nowhere. This is in the middle of a situation where we have the president of the United States and his flunkies promised the release of a non-existent client list, right? Well, the president didn't. He talked about they were going to release documents. Bongino and Patel talked about a client list. Then they come out, nothing to see here, right? It's looking more and more like some of these documents may have Trump in them.
Oh, he's in the files. They reported months ago that he's in the investigatory files on the Epstein case.
Yes. So now all of a sudden there's talk. He said he may pardon her. I can do it. I'm very suspicious.
Well, let me put it this way. The proof will be in the eating of the pudding, as the old.
It absolutely will. It may be exactly what you said. All I'm saying is suspicion. When you've got a president of the United States, for instance, who fires the director of labor because of labor numbers, because he says because he doesn't like the labor numbers, they don't reflect well on him. When that's who you're dealing with, I have an issue. When Tulsi Gabbard comes out and says that she's releasing these documents that all prove there was this grand conspiracy to screw with Trump, and I read through all the documents and they don't say any such thing, and then you have this, I'm very, very, very suspicious.
I am sitting here with you, convinced that Trump was set up in that Russiagate thing because there really was never any good evidence that Trump was involved, whatever Russia was doing with our election, however they were trying to do it. So do I think it was the politicization of our criminal justice system and an attempt to ruin, first get Hillary off, and then to distract.
But Jim, but that wasn't. This is we're separating things here.
Well, no.
The intelligence, they never came out. There was an investigation into collusion. That's true, but they never came out and said there was collusion. What they said was that Russia interfered in the election to try to help Donald Trump.
And I don't even know the second proposition to be true. There's mixed intelligence on what they were trying to do, even, and furthermore, that was clearly politicization in any case of the thing. A special counsel would not have been needed if Trump were not part of the suspicion. And that was a mistake. It was just a politically motivated mistake. But let's separate it out. Why on earth would the Deputy Attorney General need to visit Miss Maxwell in prison? And then why, shortly after, would she be moved to a lower facility? She still does face years in prison. When you've been, I don't know, maybe you can give us some insight. When you've been in prison a while and they say, well, it's going to be many years before you get out again, your mind might change on things. I don't know.
Could be.
The proof will be in the pudding. If Trump, for example, just gives her a pardon without her giving any further information about anyone else, then I know that you're right.
No, I'm not making a prediction, Jim. I'm talking about skepticism. I'm just not willing to take these people at face value.
I'm not claiming any kind of certainty or even, probable cause for what I'm saying. I'm just saying that the pattern that I'm seeing, I've seen a dozen times, more than dozens of times. And that normally, that is to say, in every previous case I've seen something like this, indicates that someone is turning state's evidence.
And also, you don't think it's even a little suspicious, Jim, that this stuff about the intelligence and the hyped up claims made by Tulsi Gabbard had anything to do with the flack that Trump was taking over the Epstein list? The timing is suspicious. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but if you have to, and even if that's the case, and they're investigating Epstein, then what they have to kind of say is the magician's misdirection. Look over here. Oh, are we still talking about Epstein? That's what they're really investigating. When a politician like that, now there are times when politicians like Obama, Trump even worse, will comment on pending criminal cases. They ought not to do that. They ought never to do that. Normally what they'll do is something like I just laid out. Oh no, look over here. There's nothing to see here, even as they're doing their most intense investigation. And I may be compromising the investigation by commenting like this, because maybe what they're trying to do is put the suspects at ease while they do an investigation. And that's always the most fertile time for a criminal investigation, when the other side thinks, okay, I got away with it. Look over here. So look over here could have many motives too. Just bear in mind, I'm not claiming certainty. I'm keeping a skeptical mind open on both of these matters. Let me put it.
Can you look? Here's the thing, right? A nonpartisan committee that included Marco Rubio found that the Russians interfered to help Trump.
Yeah, I've also seen the intelligence that said that they very ambiguous about that, and that there was also on the other side. See, in other words, if you're using Russian intelligence, where did Hillary Clinton get her intelligence? From a Russian agent. That's just one example of how, in fact, Russia was, in effect, cooperating to create chaos in general. I have a hard time believing that Russia would have preferred Hillary over Trump, in fact, which is the assumption that Democrats make, which is a wholly partisan assumption. So I don't think Russia...
But the nonpartisan committee found that way.
Yeah, well, the committee can find whatever it likes. I can evaluate the evidence on my own.
That's fine, but the only committee that found that they didn't that I know of that found that they didn't interfere.
They interfered. They tried. There's no question about that.
Yeah, but to help Trump was an all-Republican committee.
Well, that's
a bunch of sycophants.
But we do have information that makes that now not such a clear proposition. I'm not sure that Russia would have wanted Trump to be president. In fact, about that, I'm very, very skeptical. for
Well,
very.
the problem is you don't know what kind of disinformation they're putting. I'm not. It's whether they did or not is not really my point. My point is whether there was this vast conspiracy that they're demonstrating that shows it. And from the intelligence that I read, which was all the initial documents that Tulsi put forward, it's not there.
Did Obama in late in the autumn of late summer of 2016, did Obama say, I want a reevaluation of this intelligence? And was that stimulated by the Hillary Clinton campaign?
Then okay, but then you have to show that. And the documents I saw, which were all the ones she released, did not say that.
Well, they seem to indicate that Hillary was going to push this, and that there was a Justice Department person saying, yes, we could, or Hillary Clinton documents saying, we'll use the FBI and the Justice Department to do this. And lo and behold, that's what happened. So I think there's reason to be suspicious that that was the case.
Ian Gilmore makes a good point here. He says it's clear Russia wanted Trump to win. They hacked the DNC to help him. They did hack the DNC. That's true. That's a fact.
They did, but that doesn't indicate to me that they wanted Hillary to win.
No, I'm not going to try to read Putin's mind. All I'm saying is that there was a nonpartisan group that did find they interfered to help Trump. So to argue it was a conspiracy amongst deep state, which is the go-to, I'm very skeptical.
I'm very skeptical of conspiracies in general, but until you have specific evidence that's credible that links Trump to no special counsel was warranted.
So Jim, so Jim is wrong again. The thing is with Jim and Mark, you're going to find they come on here, they're wrong, and I've got to put up with it. It's like, but what else can we do?
Father, forgive me.
Oh, yes. Well, you basically are on the same side as Scott Schiff. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, well, the point is, it doesn't matter. And I'm not making any claims to certainty.
I know, Jim.
They are all I'm laying out are non-arbitrary possibilities. And
yes, these are all possibilities, right? But they're not being put out there. This is kind of my point, Jim. You're looking at it and saying, look, this is possibilities. When Tulsi Gabbard gets out there and talks, she's not speaking of hypothetical possibilities. She's speaking in certainty. The things that she's said, I've literally read the documents and watched what she said about the documents, and the documents aren't having the conclusion that she's putting forward. For instance, when the first document says that we have evidence that the Russians are interfering, and then they say there's no evidence that the Russians hacked into the election system to change votes. Those can both be statements, and she's saying, look, this is what they said then and this is what they say now. It's a contradiction.
Pundits at the time who said that our election,
but pundits can say that, but that's not relevant.
That's true. It's not relevant. And the documents they're two separate issues. No, our election machines weren't hacked, but we're running a social media campaign, a secret social media campaign. Yeah, they were. And was it mostly for Hillary? Yeah, it was, from what we can tell. And did they, in a sense, hack, let me put it this way, the DNC? Yeah, they did. Absolutely. Those are all separate issues. I understand that they hacked the DNC. But Hillary Clinton was easily hackable then, wasn't she? And she destroyed a bunch of evidence as to the private server in which she kept top secret information, and destroyed evidence that would have shown that she was, in fact, had compromised, in fact, classified information. So she was easily hackable.
Adam Schiff is a liar, Scott. I don't know if he's actually your cousin. He does share your name, and he is a liar, and I can't stand him, and I never have. All right, I got a question for you, Jim. A different question. We're moving on. We're going to see how many issues I can find you being wrong today.
Right.
So, oh, by the way, maybe next Sunday we do an interview. We can either do the logical fallacies, which I would like to do, but we have the other one about the retreat and maybe getting an objectivist thing there. But what do you think about this firing of the, what the hell was she? The head of the labor statistics or whatever, whoever released the information?
I think, well, first, you don't have to be a fan of government aggregate economic statistics to think that it was obviously a partisan move on the part of Trump. Of course, it's a partisan move on the part of Trump, but it's partisan moves to put the people in there in the first place. What doesn't get noticed and what hasn't gotten noticed, I mean, I don't want to defend Trump because what I think was what he did was rank partisanship. And you don't shoot the messenger if you don't like the message, but that in effect is what he's doing. Is he acting politically to affect what should be a, quote, scientific, dry study of economic statistics? Yes, he is. I'm not defending Trump in that sense. What he did was politicize what is supposed to be a neutral position of analyzing statistics. But what never got mentioned was how that's never been the case, that it's been nonpartisan and scientific in the first place.
Look at this. We got a surprise. Mark, thank God you're here. I got
Is Jim Valliant beating you up?
No,
Yeah,
my shoulders
Jim
are
Valiant's
hurting.
kicking
I've
his
been carrying this guy.
across
He's been
the
wrong all day.
Yeah.
He's lucky I like him. Let's just put it that way.
Look at that. I translate all that, James, into you've been right. You've been whooping his ass, and he's sore.
See how you two are? This is ridiculous. Get a room. This is absurd.
No. You just make
And then you're
fantasy.
stuttering and everything else.
You make up fantasies like Mark was in a porno or something, and that becomes now the news.
I didn't make that up.
You peddle. He correctly identified what it was. You know,
He was in softcore porn.
It was risque. It wasn't hardcore porn. And
You were just playing semantics and euphemism.
okay.
Now.
Well, this is the way. Well, didn't you recently say semantics are important?
They do. I did. Yes. Don't hoist me on my own petard here, Valiant.
Yeah. See how I just been.
Look at this mustache he's got. For God's sake.
What were you guys?
That's not a porno stash.
What were you?
porno stash.
What were you guys talking about while I was away?
Oh, who knows? The whole thing's gone to hell now. I send you all these articles. Did you read any of the articles?
I read all of the articles.
Oh, how convenient. He's read all the articles on the day we don't get to discuss them. We are discussing the Trump removal of this woman. Christopher Smith says your movie was incredibly tasteful.
Thank you, Christopher.
I don't know why you're watching Mark's porn, but hey, what can I say?
It's not my porn. It's
Oh, you were in somebody else's porn.
Tom Lazarus, a legitimate writer, wrote the movie that is a tad risque, right? It couldn't be.
Did you have that mustache in that movie?
I did not. In France, there would be no problem with this movie.
We're not in France. We're in a real country, one that actually defends itself when attacked and doesn't just surrender. Okay. We're talking about the firing of the lady from the Bureau of Labor Statistics there that Trump did. Jim is defending it, saying Trump did a great job. She was a horrible human being. And I'm saying, no, that's not true.
Yeah, I'm not buying that, James. It's okay.
Good. Thank
No, in all seriousness, I don't like macroeconomic numbers at all. I'm Austrian to the core on this stuff. I think the whole thing is silly and ridiculous. But at the same time, when the numbers came out a couple months ago about how great the labor force was, if you had told me that, I always would say, I really don't trust these numbers. When they came out this way, they always adjust them, this and that, whatever. But Trump was happy then, but now he's not. And that just drives me crazy. So what do you think about it, you mustached marvel?
Oh, I think it's definitely a political move. It looks bad on its face, as a couple of other things he's been doing recently look bad. I don't think there's any way of hiding the fact that he's trying to put somebody in that position who will reflect his wishes rather than the objective economic evidence. And I agree with you, Michael. I'm not a macro guy either. I mean, and so I distrust these numbers as well. But it's the numbers that the politicians use to gauge their progress by, rightfully or wrongfully. And he should be paying attention to them because it could actually push him to change policies. It's not. We know that there's a slowdown with respect to employment. We know there's slowdowns in sectors of the economy that are the beginnings of warning signs of real fissures that could happen. And he would be better. I guess he would be making better choices, not evading this information and fighting it, resisting it, but actually using it to inform his policies from here on out. But he won't. He's going to get a yes man and put it in that position.
Yes, he is going to get a yes man, similar to the way you and Jim interact with one another. You're each other's yes men.
No, but these guys have always been political hacks. What's
Yeah.
interesting is that while he's doing a gross political move for political reasons, and everyone's focused in on just that, show me the value-free government economic statistician. Ain't no such thing, and there never has been such a thing. So what is interesting is that for all his political hacking of the thing, terrific. At least it's getting attention on to the point that, look, we'd never have had objective, clear, fair numbers or the reporting thereof. I mean, under Biden, it was kind of a joke when 800,000 jobs get revised downward. Wait a minute here. I know that your preliminary report is inexact and you give me all the provisos on it, but that looks like, you're way off. So, yeah, the point here is not to trust the Bureau of Labor Statistics or trust any economic statistic coming out of the Treasury Department or even the Fed. There's something political involved in it inherently. That is why governments should not keep its own economic statistics in that sense, or you shouldn't trust government's own economic statistics. You know how much tax revenue they take out, how much they had to borrow, how many dollars were, injected into the economy. Those are basic facts I can understand. But when they talk about GDP, right, and they talk about underemployment, there's all kinds of different ways you can look at it, and they've always been politically spinning this shit.
Yes. Did you just curse on our show?
I did what I normally don't do.
Mark, were you in a movie called Bad Meat?
You guys are a bad influence.
Okay, so hold on a second with this. We're getting into territory that's far afoot from capitalist issues right now. But okay, here's the deal. There was a movie called Bad Meat, which was actually a very funny horror comedy. However, it kept going bankrupt throughout the shoot. So literally, they sent us home 5 times, and then would bring us back to Winnipeg to do some shooting. We shot I would say we shot 15% of the movie before the whole thing went under. So I thought there was no possible way this thing would be actually produced as a full-length feature film because they only got 15% of the shots in. This Davy Franco is in this, by the way, who's currently in a movie called Together, which looks like a very good horror movie. He's James Franco's brother. He's done a ton of stuff.
Oh, wow. Okay, so Bad Meat was the title. Was this an autobiographical account of you?
No, but it was certainly written by a vegan because it's about these kids who go to a camp because they're delinquents, and when the camp is sort of a paramilitary camp. It's like military school, and the camp counselors are very sadistic and mean to the kids. And one day, one of the fired crew, like kitchen crew, decides to make a stew with all this bad meat in it, and the bad meat turns the teachers, the evil teachers, into flesh-eating zombies, and then we go after the kids through the whole movie. Unfortunately, nothing turned out the way it was supposed to. Rob Schmidt was the director of it. He did Wrong Turns. So it was a legitimately interesting movie. It had a really funny premise. It actually read very well, but they just didn't film enough of it to put a movie together. Somehow, somebody put a movie together. So Awesome. It's probably one of the worst movies ever made, apparently. But
and the movie is by no means does not reflect the views of the American Capitalist Party.
The movie does not. In fact, I can say that I am a carnivore. I don't know about Michael or Jim, but I am a carnivore.
Okay. Jim didn't get a chance to read the article. I hope you did. But there was an article in Psychology Today that I actually thought was a wonderful article with a wonderful title. It was called Near Life Experiences.
I love that
as opposed to people that have near-death experiences. It was all about finding meaning in life. So, Mark, you go ahead, give us your assessment, and then we'll have Jim take us out with a comment on it, and then he can do the capitalist thought of the day because that's what we make him do.
What I love about it is it deals with, unhappiness, and a lot of people are very unhappy in the world, and they come to the end of their lives and they experience a lot of regret for the things they did and didn't do. And you always hear about people having near-death experiences where, they see the light in the tunnel and they feel a peace. But a near life experience is one where you actually assess your values in your life and where you stand. And you start looking at your life from an authentic perspective and asking yourself, what will make me truly happy? And it requires a bit of, divorcing yourself from the opinions of others and what I think society considers to be success, and really sitting down and getting down to the nitty gritty of what makes you feel good, what makes you happy. And very few of us, I think, actually sit down and have that come to Jesus moment with ourselves, where we actually write down what we think we want and then proceed to go about attaining those things that we want. And it may not be a better job. It may not be more money. It may be just a deeper relationship with the people you love. It may be going to school. Whatever it is you find in this moral inventory that you take of yourself, you then should go out and try to pursue that moral inventory to make yourself happier. And what did you get out of the article, Michael?
I thought it was great. I love the idea. Yeah. Thanks for giving me another assignment. The two of you are very good at that, giving me things to do. I love the idea of moral inventories. I've always, not always, but for decades now, have done it with myself. What do I actually value? What's my behavior indicating? Are my professed values in line with what I'm actually doing? What can I do to be happy? How am I thinking? I think that's great. I think the idea of just tackling life. I mean, I think I turned 49, so I'm almost 50 years old now. If you go by stats, I'm about 2/3 the way through, right? Now I could spend that time simply saying, oh my God, I only have 25 years left or whatever, 30. Or I can just say, I'm going to tackle this and I'm going to enjoy this. We only get one of these things and I'm going to make the absolute most of it. I'm not going to spend my time living for other people or what other people think or their judgments of me. I'm going to look at reality and I'm going to use it as my guide, and I'm going to make the best out of this life as I possibly can. And, not for nothing, but I set some goals when I was incarcerated, and goals don't always go the way we want. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not even 3 years out of prison after a 25-year sentence. And I'm sitting on a show with a former prosecutor, an author, and a philosopher, and a Hollywood star who are two of my closest friends on the planet. Having goals in tackling life has gotten me pretty far so far. And I just love it. I love life. And I love articles like that point out that we need to love life.
I agree with you. And that's what I love about capitalism, folks. To bring it back to capitalism and American Capitalist Party, capitalism is about loving life. It is about taking moral accountability for everything that you do. Now, that's a daunting thing for most people to consider. They want to deflect moral responsibility onto others. No, man, own your life. You are a sovereign being. It's yours, and do the most that you can with it. In the 12-step program, there's a section of the program where you have to take a fearless moral inventory. I've always
one of the only steps I actually like.
I love that
step 4.
Step 4. It's a great step. We should all take a fearless moral inventory. Do our stated values align with our actions? And if they don't, you're going to be experiencing a lot of unhappiness. You have to bring your stated values in alignment with your actions, or bring your actions in alignment with your stated values. So, folks, if you want to be good capitalists, make your values line up with your actions, and your actions line up with your values, and you'll be a much, much happier person. And remember, capitalism is the system that promotes human happiness. Yes, Mark, please read View from a Cage by Michael Liebowitz, best book ever written. Thank you, Lee. I will read that.
There's actually a blurb on the back from the great Jim Valliant.
Do you say it's the best book ever written?
I give it praise. I think I give it appropriate praise.
You didn't say it was the best book ever written. No. No, but the top Misesian economist in the world, Mark Thornton, also wrote a nice blurb on the back for it. So
I just want to say something.
Blurb, that's for sure.
I can't wait to read it, and I will definitely read it. Robert Nacier says capitalism equals freedom, and freedom is a prerequisite for a successful, joyous,
Robert
life. That is true, folks. So don't believe the hype from the American Communist Party or any of their lackeys, the socialists. They're not happy. They're perpetually enraged. And they like you to be perpetually enraged. That's why they try to get you all bollocksed up about everything that's going on. They need you in a state of rage.
They get you bollocksed up. What are you talking about? What do you?
You're
the one that gets angry at them.
No, of course I get angry at them because
You're the guy that gets all pissed.
I hate lies. No, other people, they're playing on the envy, and they're playing on the envy.
People in the audience aren't getting pissed.
I'm not talking about the people in the audience. I'm talking about people in general. For whoever's listening and not participating in the conversation, if they believe the hype of the American Communist Party, they should be distressed about everything. But you shouldn't, actually. Your life is what matters most, and you should be pursuing joy and happiness, not the things that the commies want you to pursue, which is self-immolation. All right, Jim, are you going to take us out?
Hold on, you've been taken to task here for using the word all bollocksed up. Deeper with Diego, let me just say, this program here, we are allowed to make up our own terms, use them however we want. And Mark does it more than others, of course, but nevertheless, we are allowed to do that, and it's a wonderful fucking thing. Go, Jim, give us the capitalist thought of the day. It is
wonderful.
Well, just bringing a couple of strands here together, I didn't read the Near Life. That was a great play on
Jim
words.
didn't read any of the articles, Mark. None, not one.
Not one. That's the kind of lazy bastard I am. Okay. I was asked to join 10 minutes before. Anyway, I'm going to say something that maybe is unconventional. Freedom is not enough. What Robert just said is freedom is a precondition. And going back to the theme that, as I understand this article, is near life experience, you have all the freedom in the world. The title of your book, which is an outstanding book, Michael, View from a Cage. You were in a cage with the door closed and locked. And you made a productive environment out of that, which, self-improvement productively out of that. Now, that's an amazing context. But many of us live in our own constructed cages with the door wide open. And a lot of people will describe how beautiful the cage is, even notice that the door of the cage is wide open and never get out of it. And what's really tragic is if people were to live in a cage with the door open and they don't go spread their wings and fly out of it. Capitalism and freedom are merely the preconditions for living life, taking risks, reaching out, improving yourself, which takes a lot of effort and a lot of introspection, all those self-inventories we're talking about. Capitalism permits us to improve our lives. Capitalism permits us to be selfish. All other things being equal, that gives us the best chance at it. And it opens the gate, if you will, to the cage. But it's not enough. You've got to think for yourself, do that inventory, introspect, find out what your values are, and act on them. Even in a free society, there's going to be a range of people either bound by their traditional religious views and therefore never really spread their wings, or wrapped up in some psychological condition that came from childhood. And so they'll be sitting in their cage with the door wide open, describing how beautiful the cage is without ever flying out. Capitalism opens the door and permits you to fly out. It's not the flying. You got to do that.
I love that. I love that thought. You're on mute, Michael.
We got to keep Jim around more often. Even maybe we just bring him in to do the capitalist thought of the day.
So you would
save us from having to do it.
Michael, you admit that was poetry.
That was wonderful. Yeah, that was great.
Good. Finally,
yeah,
Jim.
That was about as good as what I do when I do it, and much better than what you do when you do it. So
not even close. I was going to say it was close to stuff that I do, but you're well, folks, that's
as long as we've got things organized. You're both approaching my perfection. It's good.
Folks, you heard it here. Liberty is a prerequisite, man, but you have to take it. You have to take that liberty and do your best with it. And you can do that in the capitalist society. So remember to hit the like button and subscribe. Remember to share this across all social media platforms. You've got 23 hours now to check your premises. Now, if anything is bogging you down or tying you down or making you unhappy, think about it, analyze it, see if it needs to go, see if you need to do something about it, and then do that. And you will find your self-esteem increasing because you will see that you have power over your life that you didn't think you had. You always have a choice, folks. Remember that. And you have a choice here Psychology of what? Is that
Oh my
self-esteem?
God. Oh my God.
Yes, psychology of self-esteem. So you always have a choice, folks, and your choice tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern will be to tune into the Capitalist Corner, where we will talk about current events and all things capitalism from our own perspectives. James, it was great having you. It's always great seeing you on. I wish I could have you more. If you could even crowd out Michael, that would be fantastic. It would be a wonderful day for me.
I couldn't do it if I wanted.
That is definitely going in the outtakes. Jim, I wish I could have you more. Put that in there, Persephone. Make sure.
All right, no fair directing, Persephone. All right, guys, we'll see you tomorrow. Until then, check your premises. Peace.
Awesome.